Welcome to a new episode in our series Enigmata des Okkulten, Enigmas of the Occult. Today with a very special guest from Turkey, Peter Mark Adams. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me on, Volker. Look forward to talking with you. Let's see how our conversation goes today.
Yes, very good. And we start with the special site. Okay, Peter has a subsite on our, the link will be in the description box. You have been a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy at the University of Liverpool. You have been, are you still a member of the British Wittgenstein Society? Are you still?
Last time I looked,
Well, you have been a member. Are you still
yes.
one?
Yes,
Oh,
as far as I know, yes.
okay. And you have been or still are an associate member of the European Society for the Study of Western Esotericism, associate member. Are you still a member?
Well, my books are still posted on the S-Way website.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Okay, so as for the copyright, I only have the right to publish the conversation uncut and unedited on freely accessible video platforms. That means no paywalls. And on my homepages, my guest, Peter, has the right to shorten, edit, or add as he wishes and to publish it on his websites and video platforms according to his liking. So you can do with the material whatever you like. Is that
Yes,
okay?
thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay. There is a very, very, very long film list. It's now, I believe, there's 27 videos alone with Peter. And the whole film list is now at 149 videos. But we don't have to talk about that now. But what I want to start with is this video. It's you can find it on my Facebook account. And it's with Sarah Jones. And it's recent, it's a couple of days ago. Okay, who is Sarah Jones, who is doing a lot of videos, and you seem to be a regular attendant of her meetings, which are for the viewers, in my view, if I want to compare it, it's like people who 126 years ago would have been members of the Second Order of the Golden Dawn, somewhat like that. Would you agree with the characterization of the people which are on this panel every time?
Yeah, probably not far wrong with that. I think we're all reborn from the Golden Dawn, actually.
So who is Sarah Jones, and why are you on her panel all the time?
Well, Sarah has a nomadic existence between UK, Greece, where she has her own house, and Istanbul. So she's quite a frequent visitor here. And we have a number of connections in common. One is to Ike Baker, for instance. You probably know him from Masonic circles,
Yeah, okay.
very prominent. And the the connections get very complicated. But basically, Sarah is organizing a series of retreats based on dream incubation.
Oh,
Let's put
okay.
it that way. So they are normally in Greece, but she's here quite frequently, and there are a number of ideas for tours and retreats in Turkey because we have such an embarrassment of riches when it comes to certainly the Greco-Roman civilization, but also the Bronze Age, and now, of course, we have the Taştepeler civilization in the southeast. So there's a lot of potential here for exploring the deep roots of Western esotericism.
Okay. When you talk about the witches, you are referring to Göbekli Tepe, which was excavated firstly in 1995 by a
Yeah,
German archaeologist,
that's
Schmidt.
right.
And since then, has been happened a lot of things. And Göbekli Tepe, there's a lot of speculation going on, a lot of theories. What about Peter Mark Adams' personal spiritual view? What do you personally think? What was Göbekli Tepe? It was not a village, we can agree on that. But it might have been, would you go as far as Göbekli Tepe could have been the origin of the Mithras religion?
I think it was the origin of the Indo-European esoteric tradition, which is even bigger claim.
Okay.
And there's a distinct possibility, maybe amounting to a probability, that the Indo-European civilization was based there. In other words, it didn't come from just from the steppes, the Kurgan hypothesis. There's an Anatolian possibility for the birth of Indo-European civilization. And if so, that would be, I mean, it's not just Göbekli Tepe, there's something like 50 sites that have now been identified in a cluster. And each of those sites, for instance, Göbekli Tepe has 20, 30 rings, most of which remain underground.
Yes, they're not
So we're talking
uncovered. Yeah.
about colossal, a huge concentration of architectural effort, which must have had its supporting population. So we now talk about this as a civilization, and my guess is because it is clearly the source of agriculture, then it could well be the source of the Indo-European civilization that subsequently traveled through the Caucasus in a reverse manner into the steppes. So this would be very early on, 10,000 BCE or so. And when I look at the cult of the various gods, Mithras or the Indo-European gods. So if you compare the Avesta and the Veda and for instance, the Orphica, there are distinct parallels across these various branches. And for me, Mithraism is a articulation of Orphism for the Roman military elite.
When
And
you talk,
I covered that in my first book, Ritual and Epiphany.
yeah, we will talk about your Mithras
Mm,
books, which
mm,
are two now because you
yeah.
published the second one.
Well,
Um,
not published yet, but
okay.
finished writing it last night.
When we talk about your Mithras book, there's one intriguing question.
Mm.
You didn't publish it at your original publisher, which is how
Yeah,
you,
yeah, Scarlet imprint.
yeah, Scarlet Imprint. You didn't do the. You went to a German publisher in Felderfing am Starnberger See, which is close to München,
Mm.
Munich. How did you get in contact with your German publisher? We will have the homepage later when we talk about your Mithras books. They publish it in English, but they are in Germany. Is that because of the European market, or was there
Yeah,
another
yeah.
reason?
I mean, Scarlet Imprint are still my publisher, but I've been incredibly productive in the number of volumes. Like almost every 2 years, I have written a major volume. So there's only so much a small publisher can absorb. Most of these publishers, Theon in Munich and Scarlet Imprint, consist of just two people. One acts as editor, the other person acts as the designer.
Okay, and that is
Okay,
the
so they're
next
very
question.
small.
That is the next question by me. I compare people like you with Benjamin Dykes, and they are quite different in their publishing approach. Whereas you have a very small, very high class, unbelievable. If you look at this book, this Scarlet Imprint book of the
Yeah.
Game of Saturn, this is photo quality pages and a lot of very high
Yes.
pixel pictures,
Yeah.
extremely expensive. Whereas Benjamin Dykes, a famous American astrologer who publishes old texts, and he does it by book on demand. And the difference is, whereas in your case, your books are not always available. Sometimes they get reprinted, sometimes they don't,
Mm.
depending on your relationship with the publisher. Why did you choose this high class, not really cheap way of books? For some people, it's quite an expense
Yeah. Yeah.
to buy them.
Yeah.
Uh, is it because you insist on the quality of the pictures, or
Mm.
what is the reason? Because if you had it on book on demand, like I publish my books on book on demand, Norderstedt,
Yeah.
which is parallel to what Benjamin Dykes does with his books on Amazon.com. They have this publishing program. And in the case of myself and Benjamin Dykes, our books stay there as long as we want, and we don't have any labor with it. We don't have to store them, and
Yeah.
there's no marketing, nothing like that. In your case, you have very small publishing companies who have to market your books somehow, or you do it yourself through your networks, which might help. Is the approach you think that there are not that many people interested in your books, or what is the reason?
Oh, what we're embarking on now is a discussion of what constitutes esoteric publishing.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And so I'll tell you exactly how it happened. I was in London by chance. I went into Watkins' bookshop, which you would expect,
The famous one,
the
yes.
famous one.
And
And
one of your books is published by them, I believe.
no,
No,
not
no.
by Watkins,
Oh,
no.
okay, okay.
And immediately by the door, the entrance, there's a table on which there was a pile of books. And they were the most beautiful looking books I've ever seen. These are the hardbacks.
Yes, yes,
Okay, so what you're referring to or showing is the paperback
yes,
version.
which is still very beautiful.
Okay, so the hardbacks are the collector's items.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, the Game of Saturn will be available in a new hardback this month, and I'll be talking to Scarlet Imprint in August about the redesign of it. So a new
Okay.
collector's edition will, and
And
this table.
will that be 500 pounds or 1,000 pounds or?
No, it'll be around 80, I think.
Oh, that's reasonable.
I think so anyway.
That's
We'll
reasonable. Yeah.
see.
Okay.
So I came into Watkins, there was a small table piled up with these beautiful hardbacks, and I couldn't believe how beautifully they were produced. I picked up one, I opened it, and I was trying to read some passages, and I couldn't make out a single word. I mean, I was seeing letters and sentences, paragraphs, but I just couldn't read a single sentence that I was looking at. So I was putting the book down. I walked around the shop, came back again, opened another one, opened another one. I couldn't read any of the paragraphs. It was impossible. I was Then I realized that such an energy had descended on me, that my awareness had shifted so radically that I was no longer able to make the logical connection
Okay.
to the language itself. That was the sign. I didn't need to search for a publisher. I
Uh,
simply
uh,
needed to contact them. And synchronistically, they had recently bought a copy of the Sola Busca Tarot. So they knew immediately
of the cards.
of the
Yeah, yeah,
cards.
yeah. Okay.
They immediately understood.
I can show what we are talking about because I got this thing here. Okay. This is an edition of the Sola Busca we will talk
Yeah, yeah.
about later in our talk today. This is called Museum Quality, and if you open it,
Yeah, yeah.
there's a booklet as well. So they had bought this. So
They had bought a much earlier version, actually, which had been very strange history. A Austrian Freemason had gone to the family, and goodness knows how he knew about the cards, and requested um, photographic images of the original cards. And he produced a limited number of sets, full decks of the cards,
okay,
which is extraordinary.
yeah, that's
I
true.
couldn't. I realized he had died at some because I was trying to find this man. It was the photographic reproduction was not great. Some of the colors were murky, um, but it's extraordinary that he had done this, and I could never figure out how he had made the connections and then being committed enough to reproduce the full deck, which is so I started off with that. And it was only later I made a good connection with the Brera Gallery. I was able to obtain high definition imagery of the entire deck.
Okay,
And the clarity of color and imagery radically reshaped my thinking about the cards.
okay.
So we're talking about esoteric publishing. This is how esoteric publishing works.
Okay, for the viewers, if you want to look at the picture of the cards on this special site where
Mm,
Peter is, there is some other sub sites. And for example, it starts here. I take this one, and there you have the pictures.
Yeah, very
Okay,
nice.
so this site is not only for Peter, but for a lot of other aspects of the Sola Busca we will talk about
Mm.
later.
And if I can just add one thing, so I was obsessed with the cards imagery because I knew tarot very well, and there's nothing about the iconography that made any sense whatsoever. And
Yes,
I was I couldn't resist the challenge. And I then embarked on a day and night search of this imagery for some connections, something I could relate to and understand.
yeah.
And it took like 3 years to break into the dense coding of this Renaissance masterwork.
When you say you're rather familiar with tarot, that is quite true because when you were a teenager already, when you were 12 or 15, after you had come back from Kenya, you bought your first, was the first deck a gift or did you buy it?
No,
Uh,
I bought it.
that was Pamela Coleman Smith and
Yes,
Edward
indeed.
Arthur Waite.
But I
Uh,
also had, strangely enough, a copy of the Thoth Tarot around the same time.
from the same time?
Yeah,
Ah,
which is
okay.
extraordinary.
This really is interesting because
And that was just too advanced for me.
how do you think about the Crowley Tarot, which is Crowley Lady Frida Harris tarot deck? What is your personal approach to the Lady Frida Harris and Aleister Crowley tarot deck in your personal life?
I mean, I just find it one of the most extraordinarily powerful um, concoctions, let's call it that, because it
Yeah,
is thelemic. A lot of it doesn't make sense outside of Crowley's conception of
yes.
thelema. But that said, it is a profoundly, how can I say, designed in the geometric sense. And then its iconography is like intertwined with that in the most extraordinary um, joint work between Harris and Crowley. It's an extraordinary art. It's not one that I use, by the way. When I was reading tarot, I always used the Smith Waite deck.
Okay. Okay.
Um, mm.
Do you have an opinion on Aleister Crowley?
I think he was, in many ways, mentally disturbed. Um, there are a lot of very bad episodes connected with him.
Well, for the viewers, if you read the biography by Tobias Curtin about Aleister Crowley, every person who got in contact with Aleister Crowley was not well advised to do that. Let's
Mm.
put it this way. But there's one question I always ask people who know anything about Aleister Crowley. How is your opinion about his magic approach? When he was in the desert in North Africa,
Yeah, Busada
yeah,
and
but was
the
that
visions and
was
vision
that
and the voice. Mm.
was that real or was that not real?
I tend to think it's real, but
And
it can
from then
be.
on, he was disturbed, I think.
I think the anyone working that intensively who is doing it by themselves without an organization, without a support network, is walking a very, very fine tightrope.
But you do
I mean,
realize that we are talking about entities which are not the human.
yes,
And what
absolutely.
what is your personal approach to the spiritual world? When you were in the Watkins bookshop, you had a contact with the spiritual world.
Yeah.
A general question in your life, you were born 1955, you're a couple of years younger than myself, but we are both of the old generation, let's put it this way.
Mm.
And how many personal episodic experiences in one of your books or videos you write you shouldn't do contacting your diamond, your guardian angel, the deities, the gods. You shouldn't do that every day. This should remain episodic and not of like taking out a card of the tarot deck every day. That's something completely different.
Mm.
How is your personal experience? Is that something happens once in 5 years, once in 10 years, or once every year? How often do you have a personal contact to non-ordinary states of consciousness, if to use the term of Stanislav Grof, where you meet entities, archetypes, egregors, whatever gods, personally. How often does that happen in your life?
Well, there was a period of almost 30 years when my partner and I were doing energy work
Yes, we come to that.
every single day, the healing work.
We come to that in a minute. Yeah.
And the forms of energy that we were dealing with and the problems we were dealing with, it was all about healing. The people were very often in touch with attachments. That's to say, there is a parasitic order of beings of various levels of intensity and
The
strength.
opposite to the daimons, the demons, you mean?
I don't, I try not to judge morally. What I
Okay.
say is they're parasites
Okay.
on our energy, and therefore they're problematic.
Yes.
Okay, so dealing with these types of entity a lot um, required a counterbalance. That's what I'm trying to get at. You can't do that work without a countervailing force. And normally you cannot contain that force yourself. It has to come from outside of you. So in the traditions that I have been a party to includes the higher yoga tantras, the deity yoga. So that whenever we're engaging with energy healing, being mindful of the forces that we're trying to liberate people from, we can't do it with our own energy. It's not enough.
Okay.
And to attempt to do so would invite infestation.
Yes.
Okay, so we're always working in the light, so to speak, of the forces that do have the power to affect change. And we're just the vehicle for that. And
Okay.
this is very much my personal spiritual philosophy as well. I am a channel as an author or as a healer, so to speak. I'm the instrument.
Yes.
That's just how I conceptualize it.
Yes. This reminds me of Rudolf Steiner's writings and lectures when he talks about the bodies of the human, the physical body, the etherical body, the astral
Mm,
body, and he talks about the astral body in the way that these entities you were talking, these parasite entities you were talking about, they feed on the astral body of ourselves, not on the
yes,
physical body.
yes.
Would you agree that you feed off the astral body or the etheric body? There's physical, ether, and astral, and spiritual.
I
What?
mean, the
what
entities themselves are not of all the same level of intensity. Let's put it that
okay,
way.
okay,
Um, so what I'm seeing is that some people have attachments to somebody who is deceased, and that's not a particularly strong attachment. It's easily released. So that would be an attachment to the etheric body.
okay,
Okay, but an entity that has an intensive life can very often assume forms drawn from the unconscious of the person that it is attached to. And it's therefore you need to think of it more on the astral level. It
okay,
has a personality and
okay,
it has a deceptive ability to appear as though it's helpful. Or it
okay,
may appear as a sexual being, a sexual partner. This is fairly common in energy healing. The actual nature of the entity is completely different. And that is indicative of the danger of practices that invite a spiritual partner. And there is a tradition like that. Very often, you will not know the nature of the entity you're engaging with until a subsequent lifetime when it comes to claim based on the relationship that you have engineered in a previous life. I've had two or three cases like that. And generally, the person is in this lifetime, in the current lifetime, is completely unaware of having done so. And it takes a
you're
lot
you're
of
to, You're
Hmm.
talking about contracts in the form
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yeah.
you were signing a contract.
Yes.
It's not the
Or
contract of the myth of air in Platonic philosophy, but it's a contract in
emotional
like
contract.
a Faustian contract, like in
Well, no, no,
Goethe's
an
Faust.
emotional contract. Once you invite a spiritual partner who is also almost a sexual partner, you've made a relationship.
Okay, you got
These are
into a marriage.
sentient beings,
You got into a marriage with
in essence.
okay,
And
and then he comes in this life and says, "Wait a minute, where
yeah,
is my capital? Where is my reward for what we contracted in the old days?"
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Is that the contractual area where Mithras comes into the picture because he's the
No,
god
no.
of the
Is
contracts?
is a that is an emotional contract. If we're going to talk about formal contracts, we're talking about very dark magic indeed.
Okay.
Which is exceptionally rare to encounter it. I've only encountered it once. And at that point, the scale of what you can operate on hits a ceiling. If an entity is that self-contained, that persistent through a long period of time, several lifetimes of human lifetimes, it is probably too powerful to engage with. And at that point, exorcism becomes the only option. And as any exorcist will tell you, exorcism is an incredibly dangerous procedure to engage in.
Are you allowed to talk about this concrete episode?
Yeah, I can do
Okay,
if
do it,
it's
do it.
illuminating.
Yeah, sure, sure.
I mean, somebody came to me complaining of energetic imbalance and fatigue. They had a very good psychic function. They had a sense of what was wrong with them. And the way they described it is they had what looked like clusters of black grapes attached to their legs. So I used a basic kind of shamanic cleansing technique to rip this material off the astral body and and cleansed it. And that went very well. But then they were back the next week with the same problem. And I cleansed it again. And they were back the third week. And at that point, I sat them down and said, "What's going on? There's something more that you're not telling me." And it was at that point they revealed to me they were having these nightly sexual encounters with this beautiful entity that was bringing them to full climax. And the people I'm dealing with, by the way, are professionals. They're all high-ranking professionals in IT, in finance. It's just the way our practice ran. Okay, so these are very successful people in their day-to-day lives, and so we proceeded with trying to build the energy body up. I used rebirthing breath work and a more mindfulness based integrative breath work. What I was trying to do was repair the energy body so that at least we'll have some clarity about the roots of this problem, because there was nothing in his biographical timeline that would suggest he had engaged in some ritual activity, some dangerous liaisons, let's say. And therefore, it finally came to him in a dream state that he had been himself a human sacrifice in a previous life, and that part of that sacrificial act had engaged a contract with an entity. Okay, so at this point, I realized that I'd reached the ceiling of what I could deal with, and I sent him to a very spiritually engaged healer. Um, and even when they attempted to help him, they were able to do so, but the karmic cleansing that was required a complete reorientation in this life. Okay, that was in a sense the karmic lesson. To get free of this, you have to change yourself, your orientation to life, and how you use your years becomes critical. You need to incur a positive karmic debt, in other words. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But in dealing with the entity, it was threatening. I mean, it was threatening to the extent that it would come after whoever tried to.
Did the entity approach you yourself?
No, never. I
Because
say I always worked in the light.
this reminds me of an experience Stanislav Grof with his LSD research had when in one case of a patient he met Satan himself, but you never had this experience.
No.
Okay, so by now we might have lost all the materialistic, skeptic, academic people, and now we can talk magical from now on because they are all gone by now. So, so let's get back to your experience in Watkins' shop. You had this
Mm.
experience. This was your publisher. How about the new publisher in Felderfing am Sternberger See? Was
Well, I
anything
think
like that?
they had been wanting to do something with me
Oh, they
after,
approached you
yeah,
earlier.
after the game of Saturn. And again, these synchronicities come about. I had a project in mind, but it was cloudy in terms of its definition. It was a pursuit of the Saturnian current in the European esoteric tradition. And they decided that they had, because most of these small publishers have many manuscripts to look at. A lot of people want to be published by them. And so they were saying, well, no, we can't really deal with it right now. And I said, okay, look, Theon are interested in doing something with me. And they said, go ahead, there's no problem. And so I went ahead with Theon, and that cloudy project um, defined itself from the inside as a search, on the one hand, for the ritual process underpinning Mithraic initiation, to bring clarity to that process, and in volume two, to bring clarity to the origins of Mithras.
Okay, and we will talk about that in a couple of minutes.
Mm.
Now we go back to your youth where you were in England. You came back from Kenya. You bought your first Pamela Coleman Smith, Arthur Edward Waite tarot deck, and then you did readings. And in the book of Cynthia Giles about the history of tarot, she has a last chapter where she tries to explain what happens in a divination session.
Mhm.
When you were young, 15 years old, you started to look at the cards, and someday you started
Yeah,
laying the cards in whatever personal
yeah.
friends, family, and then did you ever charge for money for doing your readings?
No, not then. No,
Not
no.
that. Did in those days, you're young, you're a teenager, philosophy is probably not your main subject when you're 16. Did you think about what is happening here? With what forces am I connected when I do these readings? Because they are very strange working. They do work, you know.
They I mean, my huge love at the time was literature, and I was writing poetry. So for me, the disengagement, or I don't know how quite to describe it, the creative state of flow, the
Mm,
state of receptivity, I guess,
yes.
um, was quite normal for me. It was a, it was the thing I sought. I sought inspiration, and the tarot merged imperceptibly with my love of literature.
Okay.
And you can see this in The Wasteland, for instance, T.S. Eliot. You can see it so many times. The tarot finds its way into literature at so many points.
That's true, yeah. So it wasn't that you started to establish a hierarchy of angels, archangels, archai, Kuriotetes, thrones, seraphim, cherubim, and thinking these are the entities who helped me doing the Torah. That was never happening in your teenage years.
No, I mean, I always had an academic interest in these things. I was reading the Kabbalah. Um, I was reading books on Gnosticism, shamanism, witchcraft, ritual magic, the Goetia, but it was all from a more academic perspective.
Okay.
And in fact, in the 70s, there was very little material available, at least in the UK and
Yes,
in
yes,
the Northwest.
yes.
It was not like today.
No.
You had to search high and low to find
Yeah.
even a small drab of information.
If you look at Tarot, let's take the Rider-Waite Tarot, for
Mm,
example, and later the Tarot de Marseille, which is an interesting other
yeah.
story. when you are looking at it from today's point of view, remembering the story you had with the patients you were referring to, now you have more of insight about entities, archetypes, egregors, and spiritual worlds, even over karmic lifespans. How do you explain the tarot today? What's happening in a divination session when somebody lays the card for a
Mm,
client today?
mm,
What forces do you think or speculate is a better term, speculate right away? What is
mm,
your speculation? What is
mm.
happening in the tarot session?
Okay. So let me answer in a roundabout way,
Yes,
if
sure.
you'll forgive
Sure.
me.
Yeah, sure.
After so many years devoted to tarot, I had a very chance encounter about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, actually. Um, I met somebody in Istanbul, and the first thing they said to me was Knights Templar, pointing at
Okay.
me,
Okay.
which was an extraordinary thing. And this person turned out to be a tarot teacher. They said, come to me, I'll teach you the tarot. And they had had an extraordinary childhood and adulthood. At some point, they had gone to various um, religious organizations, I think Catholic in the UK, as a Turkish person. It's strange. They had operations, they were looked after by the priests, and they received a series of initiations. This is the extraordinary thing within that tradition. And this is what he offered me, an initiation into the tarot current itself, which
Okay.
I'd not been aware of. And that tarot current was a powerful, like Reiki like energy of a very high frequency. And its presiding deity is Sophia.
Okay.
And that's what I received. So at that
Are
point,
you referring to the Pistis, Sophia?
I'm talking about a vision of the goddess that
Okay.
occurs when you receive this initiation.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
It's a very specific image, and I've only ever seen it recorded once before in a 13th century manuscript. There's a
Okay.
picture of it, and I've had it confirmed by somebody who worked with Robert Place on the alchemical tarot. They also had the vision of this deity.
Okay.
It's Sophia in a particular form, but it's a very high frequency of energy. And
Okay.
so when I work with the tarot, I work with that energy. And now this is now to answer your question, if I
No, no,
can.
no, no, no. I'm thinking of taking you as the high priest, okay, of this flow. You are sort of a high priest of the Sophia Temple of Tarot, let's put it this way. And then you have people outside of the temple which are not allowed into the inner sanctum where you are allowed into, and they are doing tarot on the outside.
Mm.
Would you think that a normal tarot reader in Germany or England who is not initiated into Sophia Inner Sanctum Temple, but who is buying the cards, reading Hajo Bansov's book on Rider Waite, and then seeing clients, how far away, when he does the reading, is he from the energy of Sophia?
Yeah, so that is a karmic question. It's about purpose in this life. It's about the service that you undertake. And anyone who undertakes service in an open-hearted manner will automatically be connected to these forces.
Okay.
It's so it's not an instrumental connection. It's from the heart.
Is this Sophia existence transferred to you by your teacher in Istanbul and
Yeah,
his
this
lineage?
is the essence of initiation. It makes that link for you in a very clear and concrete way.
Is he the only one worldwide?
The only person I know of who's ever spoken about this. But as I say, the person, Rosemary Greeley, I think her name is, worked with Robert Place on the Alchemical Tarot, that beautiful deck of cards that he designed. And in the book that goes with the cards, there's a description of her vision of this goddess. So she clearly had that contact come to her. It was not sought out, but because of her own orientation.
That would mean two people.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I don't know of anyone else. My
Okay.
commitment is to pass this initiation on before I die. That's all.
Do
To
you have
ensure that
do
it
you have do
continues.
you have a Tao school for this
No,
initiation?
no, nothing.
Do you have disciples who are
No,
with you?
no,
So it will probably die out if you
no,
don't
no.
find.
I'm always guided by the forces themselves.
Okay.
They work synchronistically.
How, okay, there is a parallel in the Rosicrucian legacy where we
Mm,
talk about Christian Rosenkreuz, which started being published in 1604, and in the book form it was 1614,
mm,
15, and 16. This lineage of Sophia,
mhm.
have you experienced or read about the past of that lineage?
No, I'm aware that the figure Sophia occurs in a number of contexts. One is, as you've just said. The other one, of course, is in Gnosticism.
Okay,
So I'm very much aware of the historicity
okay,
of the figure. Um, but my approach to the esoteric is in the here and now, as the energy that comes when I open a spread,
okay,
asking for that help, for the guidance of the person who's asked for the spread to be opened.
okay,
Okay. It's not me again. It's
okay.
the energy.
Okay. In horary astrology, according to William Lilly in Christian astrology and the tradition of the older texts, before you do a horary in
Mm,
astrology, you have to prepare yourself, and the
yeah.
client has to prepare himself. And if you go back to the approach of the Oracle of Delphi, the people who wanted to ask a question, which would be the question in Hori
Yeah.
astrology and as a metaphor, but when they hundreds and thousands of years ago went to Delphi, they had to undergo a ritualistic cleansing.
Yes. Myesis, it's called. Yeah.
Yes, and you talk about this in your books as well.
Mm,
How far would you go to advise normal tarot readers, people who do it with clients? Would you advise them think about take yourself back,
yeah. Yeah.
look at what is happening here, think about the deity and goddess who is helping you, bring some sacrifice, and do the same with your client before you start the whole tarot
Yeah.
procedure. Is that
Let me.
something which you would advise, or would you say, no, this is reserved for the inner temple of the, like myself,
No,
initiates?
no, not at all. I mean, there's a parallel between a healing session and a tarot divination session. And that
Okay,
parallel is the generation of a field.
okay,
Okay. And this is a transpersonal field. So the two energy bodies meet, and in the intensive context of the reading or a healing session, there's a genuine connectivity. So that as the healer, you're in danger of taking on the client's problems. Okay. So how do you obviously you want to forestall that. In healing, it's quite clear. We use the energy as a protective shield, and we sacrifice the persona in order to be an instrument. And it should be the same in a tarot reading. If you're just doing tarot for fun, it's another thing. But if you're seriously trying to help people in their healing and in their assimilation of life's difficulties that have built up and they're looking for a resolution, you're going to be in that field with them when you intend to help. It's sufficient to generate an interpersonal, transpersonal field of consciousness. So you're going to be in there, and you need to take a precaution that you cleanse the space before and after, and that you call upon whatever deities or spirits you work with to close your own auric bodies.
Okay. When somebody doesn't want to follow your advice, is he opening for parasitic demons?
Well, opening for whatever the client is carrying with them,
Okay.
essentially.
Okay. Okay.
It's
Okay.
almost a diseased paradigm that you're working with. Contagion is one of the subtler dangers of energy work of any kind, whether it's divinatory or healing. Contagion is a factor. And for instance, if you're successful, you will release energetic bodies from the client's astral bodies. They'll be in the room with you.
Okay.
And I can tell you an extraordinary story about that as well, if you're
Yes,
interested.
sure, sure. Go ahead.
So, running a practice for these 30 odd years, the room, the office that we were using, my partner was seeing maybe three, four clients a day. I was seeing clients. The room begins to get dense with the dark energy fragments, astral fragments.
You should use a light shower after every hour.
So we were smudging, but sometimes we were introduced to somebody. I forget how it happened, but this was almost like an Islamic scholar, and his speciality was working with Islamic angelic forces.
Okay.
Okay, and what he said to us is, knowing what you do, I can offer a cleansing ritual, should you wish. And so we said, yes, we're happy for that to happen. And so we arranged it. And my partner and I were in the admin office one day. We had the table with the invoices on, we were sorting out, and I saw it quite distinctly. It was like a white sheet came from my right hand side and crossed the room. And as it crossed between us, our knees buckled. Literally, if the table hadn't been there, we'd have been on the floor. It was like it was like being brushed by the wing of an angel. That's how I felt. It was such a intensity of pure strength with
Okay.
nothing malignant about it, but a frequency too high for our bodies to take it.
Yes.
It reminds me of Rilke's lines in the Duino elegy, actually,
Yes.
who, if I cried out amongst the ranks of the angels, would hear me, and even if one of that number embraced me, I would wither in the face of their more extreme existence. It was just like that.
This gives me a reason to come back to the speculations about Göbekli Tepe and the surrounding sites. One of the questions which nobody can answer is how did they carve the stones and how did they transport them and how did they erect them?
Yeah.
From Jamblichus, which is 10,000 years later, we know that he, in his theological ritual approach, he levitated, okay,
Okay.
and he had a halo when he did that. My speculation, I offer a thesis for you. My
Mm.
speculation in Göbekli Tepe is first there were non-human beings involved, and they knew about to cut via laser sort of methods because it's a really difficult thing to explain these stones how they were taken out of the stone break. And then for the transportation, he levitated them and then he turned them upside down. A non-human, okay. What do you think about my thesis?
I mean, it's possible. We have to be very careful with the archaeological evidence that we have. For instance, the uh, exercises using pounding and various movement mechanisms do exist. It is just about feasible
But
for
important than just about.
yeah.
Not
So
really, not really feasible.
the interesting question for me is what motivated them so strongly. What was
Well,
that
if
presence?
Sophia is present, we don't
Yeah,
have to ask that question.
yeah. So the presences that drove that sudden spurt of civilization.
Could it be that it was a meeting point of gods and the humans were just sort of collateral?
I think it's part of a larger evolutionary pattern, personally.
Okay,
My understanding of a deity is a teleological being of a
okay.
very high order. That's to say, it's a purposeful being. Its entire existence
Of a
is
very
its
high
purpose,
of a very high order.
of a
Okay.
very high order.
And
Yes,
then we are approaching Dionysius Areopagita and comparable literature, theological literature, Platonic
yes,
literature, ideas literature, the Anima Mundi literature, the Proclus literature.
certainly Proclus, and
Okay,
I
let's,
suspect Proclus's text was the basis for Dionysius the
yes.
Areopagites
That gives me
writing.
this gives me reason to refer to a couple of your videos. You were mentioning that the mysteries of Eleusis,
Mm,
when Eleusis was destroyed, there was some sort of transfer.
yes, there was.
And this
Yes.
transfer sort of went over Iamblichus to Proclus and the guy behind Proclus and his wife, I believe, the
Well,
Proclus
let
wife.
me clarify if I
Yes,
could.
please, yeah.
The last legitimate hierophant of Eleusis, Nestorius, was of the lineage of Eleusinian priests. Okay. When I think Theodosius declared that all pagan rituals had to cease, they knew the writing was on the wall. And his son, Plutarch of Athens, was a high priest of Asclepius. And between them, they decided to transport the initiatory apparatus of Eleusis to Athens to ensure that it survived the destruction of the sanctuary at Eleusis. So Nestorius, his son, and the daughter, Asclepigenea, they taught her how to conduct the initiation and empowered her how to do it. They also taught her the practice of theurgy, and she became, in a sense, the last and greatest high priestess of that tradition. They had a small community in Athens, and from all around the Mediterranean, people went there. Now, the people who went there had completed their education. They were, for the most part, professionals in law, medicine, architecture, engineering. So they're kind of the cream of late antique society. They went to the school in Athens to learn the practice of theurgy and to receive the initiatory traditions of Eleusis. And therefore, they were able to then uh, distribute that primarily to Alexandria, where many of them had come from. And that tradition continued in the schools of Alexandria until something like the early 6th century. I think Olympiodorus was probably the last of the great initiates of that tradition. After that, it's gone underground. So my book on the Hagia Sophia is that the architecture essentially has been, and the decorative design is the last gasp of that tradition in a concrete form.
We will talk about that when we talk about that book.
It's another.
Now we go back, we jump back to your youth, your teenage years. You finished when you were 16, you left the boarding school. You have been in England, and then there were a couple of jobs. Do
Yeah,
you want to talk about what sort of jobs you had in between?
not really. They were kind of trivial. I worked in Liverpool City Libraries for a few years. That was a good job and a great opportunity to educate myself even further. And
But
then
you,
I went to university to read philosophy.
yes, and that was 3 years or 4 years?
Three years
Yes. Then you had the
philosophy.
bachelor. And there is an intriguing aspect of your life because I did a lot of interviews and I did Charles Burnett of the Warburg Institute. And in your biography, during or after your studies in Liverpool, there is an episode of Warburg in London, which is the institute founded by
Oh,
Avi Warburg from Hamburg, and then they transferred. Well, a lot of stories about the
okay. Yeah,
institute.
yeah,
We
yeah,
don't have to talk about the Warburg Institute history. People can Google
yeah.
that. How did you get into the Warburg? Because that's not so easy. You have to have connections.
Oh, now let me clarify. I did not do a PhD with them.
No, no, no. Studies, not a PhD. It's
The
just
studies
to
are
be inside.
open to anybody.
No, 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 that's not so easy. You have to have somebody who lets you into the door. When you, this is not open for the public. In that case, that you have to arrange a date, and they will check that you will not set fire on the building or something like
Okay.
that.
I mean, I saw they had a number of courses on iconography and iconology, on material culture in the Renaissance, and I
Okay,
simply applied for them and
okay,
told them about my background, which
yes.
is the books and the research I was doing. That was it.
Was that
I was
before your bachelor exam or after?
Oh, this was long after. This was
Oh,
while
okay.
I was actively engaged with writing. It's
Oh, okay.
many years later. So, and because I'm in Istanbul, I was able to do these courses through Zoom,
Oh,
which
so
was
this is
extraordinarily
after
fortunate.
1996
Oh,
when
it's
you
a
were
long
home.
time.
Yeah,
Yes, the
okay.
Vorburg. And as you may know, the Vorburg Institute had a major tarot conference and exhibition
Yes, yes.
last year. So I went to them, I visited them, I brought them a copy of the reproduction of the full deck of cards. They already had my books in the library at
Oh,
the
okay.
Vorberg,
Okay.
but I was able to meet the director and the team assembling the exhibition.
Did you meet Charles Burnett?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
No,
okay. Okay.
no, no, because
That's
it
my
just.
reference person because I interviewed him.
Okay. So yeah, I was able to at least contribute something,
Oh,
but
okay.
still the analysis that I've done of the cards is recognized. I mean, the Game of Saturn, the book is in almost every major academic library in Europe
How,
and the US.
this gives me cause for the next question.
Okay.
I was wondering, in academia,
Uh,
what we did partly in this talk today is not acceptable for academics.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
How about your book? I had the feeling, this book, this Game of Saturn, I had the feeling that you sort of restricted yourself not to scare the academics. Is that impression correct?
Yeah, I didn't talk about, for instance, the enormous energies that descended on me while I was doing the research.
Oh, okay.
It
That
was
that was my question. Yeah.
Yeah, it was of an order of power that I was not comfortable with. It was like a body was locked in a spasm. The energy was so intense, and I understood this was the draconian current that the cards are um, designed to invoke. That's their principal rationale to encode that theurgic operation, which is clearly a Hellenistic surgical operation. And therefore, the cards are, from an esoteric history perspective, one of the most remarkable repositories of ancient ritual practice.
Okay.
And it's
But you, but you,
extraordinary that they were
but
there in the Renaissance.
you didn't have a personal contact with the draconic deity.
Well, I did. It was the energy again.
The energy, yes, but not as in the Red Book of Sigurd Jung,
No,
personified, sort of more being one with the deity. That not that far.
no, it's a different conception of unification. I had a job to do.
Okay,
The energy was flowing through the task itself. It
okay,
had
okay,
an
okay,
outcome,
okay.
which is the game of Saturn, which is the
Yeah,
recovery
yes.
of this theurgic operation for the first time since
Did you
500 years at
did
least.
did you get an information why you were chosen?
No, no, I never look for that. I just
Well,
obey.
it could be that you get some information why you are supposed to do this and to motivate you a
My
little bit.
guess is that the energy puts out a field,
Okay.
and not everybody responds to it. A lot
Well,
of
in that
people,
case, only you. Okay.
in this case, it was me.
Okay.
I
It's just you.
seized the task
Yeah. Okay.
and I made it my full-time occupation for 3 years
Yes.
to work on this. So not everybody has that kind of concentration, single-minded concentration. I did nothing else for 3 years except examine the card's iconography.
When I'm watching all your videos and this talk today, I'm wondering, you have this practice of energy field work with your wife.
Yeah.
When did you meet your wife?
Uh,
In England?
there,
In England or in Turkey?
no, no, in Turkey. Yeah,
Oh, in Turkey.
I was here.
So
I
it
was
was
here
after
already.
1996.
Yeah.
Okay. And you are both engaged in this energy work today. Still, you have your practice and
With the
clients.
practice, we had to close because of COVID.
Well, COVID is over now.
Yeah. So that energy is dispersed. We trained a lot of people,
Okay.
hundreds of actually,
Okay.
in various energy techniques. And now we have both shifted to a different path. My path now is this kind of, I would call it education.
Okay. Writing books
Uh, but
and articles
but
and
it's not just
courses.
writing books, it's channeling certain uh, currents
Okay.
that need to be replicated, not for my lifetime, but for subsequent
Okay.
lives.
Okay.
This is a legacy operation that I'm
Okay.
engaged in. These works will be read at some point in the future, and I
Okay.
hope that they will then provide the seeds for the recovery of certain ritual operations and a reconnection with higher order forces.
Is that work including Zoom conferences as in the sort of a course where people can pay some money and then they get a course?
I've never done that, but maybe I should. I
Okay.
would love to, actually, if there were enough people interested in
Okay.
studying the Sola Busca, I would offer that course.
Okay. How about your wife? What is she doing? If you're allowed to talk about that.
Well, I don't want to, but
Okay.
that's private.
Private. That's
So,
private. Um,
but she continues to take individual clients internationally on Zoom
okay.
to
For
give healing sessions.
healing sessions.
Yeah.
So that leaves the question open. If you are not doing clients and your wife is doing clients, is that sufficient to get bread and butter on the table?
We live by the grace of the deities, nothing more.
But there is some income that you can live comfortably.
No, I wouldn't say comfortably. We live very, very simply.
Oh, okay. So of
You
course,
you have to give up an enormous amount.
okay,
The sacrifice and what you get for sacrifice balanced each other. So I've had the enormous gift of being able to break open, um, let's call them esoteric secrets, which have remained dormant or hidden for hundreds and hundreds of years. That's an immense gift I've been given. But to access that gift, I had to give up everything.
okay.
I don't have holidays. I don't have meals outside. I don't have any entertainment. I'm like a monk, dedicated to this one task and nothing else.
And the reason why you don't do the courses yet, for example, a Sola Busca course training people to use the cards, I was wondering if you did a course on Sola Busca, it's not really a deck to do the normal tarot
Yeah,
reading.
exactly.
What
Yeah.
would you teach people in a course like that?
On a course, I would want to unpick the esoteric layers behind the iconography, to understand the traditions that it embodies. And the most important one is the ritual sequence of theurgy itself. So that's what the course would really be about.
But it would not be the goal that there would be a ritual at the end in a
No,
real Yamblicus way. That is not what would
I
not be the goal.
I think the preparation, personal preparation necessary to embody these energies without becoming very destabilized requires an almost yogic level of daily practice. It's an avenue,
Yes.
but for
Okay.
what purpose?
Yeah. Okay.
The people who put together the Sola Busca had a definite purpose in mind, and we can discuss that later. But
Yes.
most
We
people in
will. Yeah.
day-to-day life do not have a compelling purpose.
Okay. Now let's get back before we come to the Sola Busca. We have to start with the energy work, and um, let me see. This is the homepage we started with. Okay, and then there is the talk with Peter Magan. Here it is. Now, sometime in your life, energy work started with the term Reiki, right?
Hmm.
When did that happen and why? Here's
Okay.
Reiki. It's a Reiki in a German documentation of the besondere Therapierichtung natürlichen Heilweise in Europe. It's translated documentation of the special natural medicine and healing procedures. It's 4,000 pages, and there's a chapter on Reiki, and it describes Reiki as a universal life energy, a divinatory force. And it's Dr. Mikao Ushui, and as far as I watched your videos, you are in that tradition, right? You are in the Ushui tradition.
Yes.
When did that happen? How did you get into that tradition?
Again, most of these traditions seek you out. One thing that needs clarification regarding Usui Reiki is that it's a descendant of deity yoga.
Okay.
It is the Japanese version of the higher yoga tantras, the Vajrayana.
Yes.
Japanese Vajrayana. Okay. What you see practiced in the West is Reiki with small whiskers like Reiki. Without a lineage, what you're dealing with is simply some anonymous healing force.
Okay.
So a lot of people say that they're doing Reiki, which is fine. I have no problem with it. But without knowing what lineage of energy, what their initiatory lineage is, you can't be sure it's a Sui Reiki, which is the only lineage descended from this higher yoga tantra.
Yes.
So what I'm talking about when I talk about energy healing with the Sui Reiki is a form of Vajrayana healing. It's deity yoga.
Okay.
The practice, the yoga,
On the level of Sophia?
it's another energy.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's the same level, more or less.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, the yoga part of it is engaging, giving up all your free time to treat and heal and teach. That's the yoga.
Okay.
It's not sitting and meditating, which is
Yes.
too
Okay.
much
Yes.
focus in the West. It's not selfish. It's what can you do for your community? So a very
Okay.
active yoga, and in that context, you have this enormous access to the energy passing through you as
Okay.
a protective force. As it creates all kinds of marvels. So this this type of connection finds you out,
Okay.
whether
Now,
you're looking for it or not.
and how did it find you?
Well, through my partner, she had been looking for Reiki,
Wait
and
a
then
minute. Wait a minute. Reiki came into your life after 1996?
yeah,
Okay. So let's stop here and do the gap in between. Someday you decided not to stay in England. How did that come about?
well, I was a management consultant for a major company, Price Waterhouse.
Okay.
So I had a profession
Yeah. Okay.
in the high tech
Okay.
sphere, and as with those kind of jobs, you get sent anywhere. You
Yes.
don't know where you're going to end up. But coming to Istanbul felt like fate. And
Okay.
after the end of the assignment, I decided to move here.
That is too quick. You were a management consultant on a rather high salary level, and then the assignment ended, and you said, "Okay, enough of the good money. I stay here because why?"
Well, yes, just to be close to this civilization. to the people I've
Have you
met.
met, had you met your wife then?
No, no. This
So
was
you were an
this.
individual without a companion in Istanbul, and still you decided, I leave my cultural background, England,
I decided to make
Empire
that
is
commitment. Yeah, yeah. Something here was calling me, and I felt very much at home in
okay.
this culture, this deep, rich culture of
Okay,
Istanbul.
so you are now unemployed and there's no money coming in.
No,
How
I'm
did,
a freelance consultant.
okay,
I go freelance.
you stayed in Istanbul and offered your services like you did before, but
Yeah,
now as a freelancer. Okay.
that's right.
Okay. How many years for this
Oh, I
sort
don't
of
know. It's
income?
uh, how many years? Good question. This be throughout the 90s
Till
until
2000.
well, no, until I encountered Reiki.
Okay. Now
That was the
this is
important transition for
this is the
me.
point. Okay. So you have been a freelancer in management consulting,
Yeah,
and then Reiki found you.
yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, I'll say I knew my partner from various office contacts, but she had been looking for Reiki and couldn't find it in Istanbul. And
Okay.
one day she got on a bus and said this to the woman next to her. And the woman on the other side said, "Oh, my daughter does that." And so she connected up with a circle here. And through that, I got introduced to it.
Okay.
And then it started to become a full-time
Okay, not so fast because
engagement.
not so fast. I'm a little bit familiar with the training of Reiki in Germany, and there are very different approaches.
Mm,
Some people learn Reiki in 2 weekends, and then they are
yeah.
Reiki masters, and then there are other people like yourself. You didn't learn it in 2 weekends, right?
No, we engaged in healing first. We got Reiki, we got an initiation, and then engaged in healing. It
Okay.
was always it was always healing other people.
And in the formal aspect of Reiki,
Mm.
did you get grades, initiations, Reiki Master 2, Reiki Master
Okay, let
3?
me explain the person who gave the initiation was a kind of shamanic character. She was incredibly energized. The first time I met her, for instance, sitting and talking about the initiation to come, I started seeing that she was covered in like a green oil paint and some bright blue, dark blue strands within it. So her energy was so intense, it opened up my own psychism. I was able to see the astral fields in full depth and color. She had that much energy about her. So I got the initial initiations from her.
That was
And then,
the first initiation.
yeah, and then I went to the UK to William Rand, who had the initiations from the Usui tradition in Japan. That's when I connected directly with the Usui
Okay.
tradition. I don't use the term Reiki master, by the way. I'm just a practitioner. I'm not a master of anything.
If you would look from outside, would I be wrong to say that's humble, but you are a Reiki Master?
No, what master of what?
Okay, I
I
understand what you
just
mean.
hands-on healing.
Okay, I understand. And now we come to the first book we want to talk about, which is, you see my computer screen?
Yeah.
Okay. The first book we want to talk about, we will talk about all these books, but this is the first one. The Power of the Healing Field. When did your wife and yourself thought to do something like that, and when did it come into being? The Power of
Oof.
the Healing Field. And
So,
what's it about? What's this book about,
okay.
and why did it come into the world?
Okay, this book condenses the most interesting, the most fascinating cases of energy healing that we ever encountered.
Okay.
That's what it's about. When you read this book, you'll have a new perspective on energy fields, on ancestral healing, on past lives, on the deep roots of emotional and physical illness. And the book is a vehicle uh, to try and preserve and teach the most important lessons that we gained from our 30 years of healing work. That's what the book is.
Do you know the price?
Oh, it's like $4.99 Kindle,
Okay.
all
Okay.
from Amazon.
Okay. And when did it appear in the world?
It appeared in a self-published form, and then it appeared through inner traditions. So I can't remember quite what the date of this beautiful inner traditions edition
Okay.
is.
Okay.
This is the, yeah.
Okay, then we have let's find the next is this the next book we should talk about, Mistai?
If we're passing over Game of Saturn for the time of being, this would be the book I did immediately after the Game of Saturn.
Okay, this is after no, so how about this book, Hagia Sophia?
That was that
What's
was
this?
after Mistai.
So that's later even.
Yeah,
Okay, so after the energy field, what's the
it
next
was
book?
Game of Saturn,
Oh,
the Sola Busca.
we are already on the Sola Busca field. Now let me see how where they find that. Okay, this is this book. Um,
I would like to relate one more story if I could
yes, please,
from
please,
from
please.
the healing field
Yes.
because it was very bizarre, and it may be of interest to your viewers. So when I was still working with the shamanic woman with the very high Kundalini energy, we had a meditation one evening, and my partner and I and some other people were there. And all of a sudden, I found myself in a room with a black and white checkered floor. And I looked down to the right, and there was a coffin lying there, and I was lying in it. And I turned to the other direction, and I seemed to pass into a tunnel. And then I went vertically into a pool of light of such intensity that I could barely make out anything. But I was very aware of being surrounded and embraced by the most loving presences I have ever experienced in my life. Complete love and acceptance. So that was extraordinary. Now, when I talked to my partner after this, she had had a almost identical experience, except there had been a kind of speaker's rostrum in the space. And from that, a big, long, like almost like a red carpet. It was a tongue, though, unrolled. And a booming voice said to her, a well hung tongue. And she pestered me for weeks afterwards as to what this could possibly mean. And again, one of those synchronicities, I happened to be reading Andrew Sinclair's, he's a descendant, of course, of the Sinclairs of Rosslyn. His book, The Sword and the Grail, he's talking about his ancestors and their connection to the Knights Templar and the early days of Masonry. And in there, he puts a little section of a question and answer. I don't know what you call it, like a lodge question and answer sheet. It must be from the 16th century, I guess. And one of the questions is, what is the great strength of the lodge? And the answer is a well-hung tongue. And that's extraordinary
Yes. Yes,
that
it is.
these two synchronized visions during deep meditation, deep energized meditation, should have occurred, and that they should be pegged to an actual text from the 16th century. Anyway, I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, that's true. In that context, you were talking about in one of your videos about egregores. Could you
Yeah, yeah.
elaborate what an egregor, in your opinion, in your speculation, is?
Yeah, I guess that was the egregore of the third degree of Freemasonry that was somehow it's either an egregore or it's a past life memory. I don't know. I
Do
can't.
do
I don't dwell on it too much, but
considering your BA in philosophy, egregor in some fields, for example, in my Rosicrucian background,
Mm,
when 700 people come together for a conference every
yeah,
14 days, they build up a force field which is called an
yeah.
egregor.
Hmm.
And if they are doing this long enough, the egregor becomes sort of autonomous and becomes an entity and remains. And in one other videos, one of the recent ones, you were talking about all the egregors who are still here. You
Yeah.
know, how about this egregor category? And do you see it differently from the term archetypes, which is very important in Jung's philosophy or praxis?
Mm.
What is egregor for you? What is archetype for you in the context of your energy field experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting equation, archetype and egregore. That's a very interesting equation to make. I think Jung's problem was that he was still working with a model of consciousness that essentially localized it.
Hmm.
But he was dealing with concepts and realizations and insights of a transpersonal consciousness.
Yes. And there is the question, how autonomous are these entities?
They are autonomous.
Okay, I
Simple as
agree.
that.
I personally agree with you, and I think the transpersonal movement is missing something out because they don't integrate this
Yeah,
spiritual aspect. If
yeah.
if the archetypes probably the same like an egregor, or the egregor is the disciple of an archetype, whatever. If those are spiritual entities, we humans are a little bit arrogant, thinking we could talk about them. Is that right?
No, not at all. I mean, they are the creations of our deepest spiritual impulses,
Okay, okay. So we differ.
consolidated, so to speak,
Okay.
in the field of consciousness.
And now we are coming to this book. In 2009, the Italian government
Yeah,
paid 800,000 euros to the family Busca and the families Sola. And these two families were intermarried because the Marquise de Busca had married a Count of Sola. And the deck came into the possession of the Italian government, and the Italian government gave this deck to the Museum of
yeah.
Brera, right?
Brera Gallery. Yeah, yeah.
Why did it take 3 years to create the exhibition? Why not in the same year?
I mean, if they had the same mindset that I had when I first saw the cards, I would be saying, what on earth are we going to say about the iconography? Because first, not only is it non-standard, it's disturbing.
Yes, it's completely different from all the other tarot
It's
decks.
it's it's grotesque.
Yes.
So although the artifact is beautiful and is clearly a masterwork, there's no doubt about it. It's depicting defecation, urination, decapitation, um, burning alive, infanticide. It has the most disturbing surface layer of imagery of any cards I've ever seen in my life.
Continue. I just show the pictures.
Yeah, you need to go to the Trumps.
Okay, let's go to the
That's
Trumps.
that's where all the horror unfolds. Not so much in the suit cards, which are grotesque. That's nothing about these cards is particularly comforting. Let's say they are jarring, indecent, um, in
Here's
bad taste,
here's the
but
first.
deliberately so.
Here's the magician. Okay.
Okay, so as we run forward, I mean, there's one of the ritual cards. Moving forward, we this is one of the interesting coded cards. One of the upward torches.
And in your book, you talk about all these
I talk
cards.
about it like Deo Toro, the card that just passed, is the god of the bull, Deo Toro.
Yeah, this is Mithras
This
connotation, right?
Mithraic
Yeah.
reference, yeah. because Diodorus
Yes.
was a historical figure, but you don't spell his name like that. The infanticide you just passed, another ritual card, yeah.
So let's start from the beginning. In
Mm.
2009, nobody knew how to interpret the iconographic
Yeah.
pictures. Then you got the command by the gods. You had to do something about it. And the Brera Museum had 3 years to create an exhibition with an exhibition catalog, which is no longer available to buy. And how did this come to you? Did you go to the exhibition yourself, or did you
No, I
buy the
didn't.
catalog, or
I
what?
didn't know anything about it, and I chanced upon it online.
Oh,
Somebody
okay.
had, what I didn't realize, there had been a tarot community discussion of these cards going on for many years, some
Yeah.
decades, attempting to decode them. But I wasn't aware of that at the time. No, I just caught the imagery and something about it grabbed my attention, and I started on a process of research.
Peter Mark Adams calls it a literary detective story. Can you
Indeed.
elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's I embarked on a detective story. Who did it? Why? And when? And to what purpose? These were the four questions I had in mind.
And how did you find out?
Well, some of
Because,
them had been answered. There was a level of scholarship about the cards, um, connoisseurship, I should say, rather than iconography. Certainly not iconology. The connoisseurship um, dealt with who was the engraver and when were the engravings done.
and who
The,
was the inspirator of the card? There is a discussion. You decided for yourself, contrary to my conviction, you decided that Pellegrino Prisciani, the court astrologer of the d'Este court in Ferrara, is the one who
most
ordered
likely, yeah.
ordered how. I'm of the opinion that Ludovico Lazzarelli is an important figure in that context. I'm
Now
not sure.
the
I'm not sure how
problem,
much of his Quater
okay,
Hermetis is involved in this whole thing. But you discarded Ludovico
yeah,
Lazzarelli, who was translating the Corpus Hermeticum
yeah,
15,
yeah,
16, and 17, and who wrote the Quater Hermetis.
yes.
Are you familiar with Walter Hanegraaff's how he looks on Ludovico
Yes, I
Lazzarelli?
have the monograph,
You have the monograph. Okay.
and
Now,
that's why I rejected Lazzarelli.
yes, I know. Um, I read your book, and I read
Okay.
the Walter Hanegraaff's Quater Hermetis edition. I was wondering if we could come to a common ground. The Quater Hermetis is sort of a background music which played in these areas in that time.
Yeah.
And so there is an influence there as a Platonic Christian influence, Quater Hermetical. And then there is this other influence by this court astrologer Prisciani. Why, what do you think was what did Prisciani think and live? What sort of person was he? Was he a Machiavelli of his time?
Yeah, it was eminence Greece, they call it. This brooding presence over the court of Ferrara. There was no significant project ever undertaken without Prisciani's imprint on it.
Okay.
And that started very early in life. He was recognized as having a quality of genius, of polymath. When he designed the incredible fresco cycle of the Palazzo Schifanoia.
When he commissioned the Sola Busca deck,
Mm,
was that when he already knew who he wanted to give it to, or was that open
no.
and the gift for the Venetian guy
Mm.
came later? He commissioned the deck for other purposes, and then the gift to the Venetian guy in this diplomatic area. In your book, you describe it very lengthy.
Yeah.
What's your speculation when he commissioned the deck? Was the Venetian guy already in the picture for to do
He
it for him?
no, there was a cabal, let's call it, within the Renaissance circles, elite circles in Ferrara, Florence, and Rome, and almost certainly in Rimini as well. This cabal had been heavily influenced by George Gemistus's physical presence in Italy.
Georgius Gemistus Pleton.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about him before we continue the story of
Yeah.
the Sola Busca.
So
Who was Georgius? Well, I know, but viewers don't know. Georgius Gemistus Pleton, probably the most important Platonist of all times for the history of Italy and Europe. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. He was the recognized authority, but he was also a profound Hellenist. That's to say, the Byzantine system had always been split between the educated people who had a Hellenistic background and the church. The church was largely uneducated. So there was a constant conflict between the Orthodox and the Hellenists. And Platon was one of the Hellenists.
He was a paganist, right?
He was a pagan through and through, and not only that, developed a full liturgy for the Olympian gods and was teaching it to a select few down in Mithras, down in the southeast Peloponnese. So he was also an advisor to the emperor and his son, and was advising them to give up Christianity in favor of a return to the true religion of the Greeks. He said, we cannot counter the Ottoman influence in Anatolia until we go back to our religious roots. But of course, the writing was on the wall for Constantinople. It was only a matter of time. And I believe at that point he made the decision to transfer the know-how of a powerful liturgical ritual process to the elite members of the Renaissance. So he went with the Byzantine delegation.
That was for the Council of Ferrara, Florence in 1438 and 9.
Yes.
I have a question to this combination. Why was the council held in two cities? Why not in one?
A plague broke out in Ferrara, so they had to shift it to Florence.
Okay, okay. And he came with his material, and there he met
started
people.
teaching it.
Yes, he started teaching it.
Here's the thing.
He brainwashed the elites of those states.
Basically, he had a message of liberation. At that time, the church was teaching that your soul is created at the moment of conception, and that upon death, you either go to heaven or hell based on your obedience to the church. This was the vision of life that they were offering, the spiritual life. And Platon came along and said, no, your soul is eternal, lives many lives, many different times. And through self-purification and liturgical rituals, you can liberate yourself from the harsh demands of life. So it was this message of liberation, spiritual liberation, that caught the attention of the Renaissance elite. It was very much in tune with the times. But
and now we come back to the Cabal.
To the Cabal, yes. Well, there was no way in which they could be forthright about this, because the same families that endorsed this, plus essentially Platonism, were also the cardinals of the Roman Catholic Church. So Ercole d'Este, the Duke of Ferrara, his brother was a cardinal of the church. And they were drawing enormous wealth from the various bishoprics, the position of cardinal. It was handed on in their family for something like 300 years. It's like a family heirloom to have a cardinal's hat. So there was this kind of disjunction within the society between its elite belief system and what they were telling the mass of the population and what the church was telling the population. It was like a three-way spit. And of course, it eventually it generated the Reformation, and all the troubles and ills of Europe that spilled out in like 100 years war until the Peace of Westphalia in 1630s finally laid the foundations of the modern nation state. So that was a bit of a historical leap. Okay, so yes, the philosophy though never went away. It continued
But but
throughout.
but going back to Prigiani,
Okay,
and this question when he thought about creating a tarot deck,
yeah,
there's you could create a book, you could write a book about Plato and his philosophy and keep it secret in a secret order or something like that. But he this comes to the theme of miniaturizing of
yeah,
secret knowledge.
yeah.
And on this homepage, there is a special subsite about that because of your video about that. Could you elaborate about this miniaturizing approach?
Okay, well, this is something which is as old as the esoteric tradition. So, for instance, in Egypt, you have a process of miniaturizing large statues into rings, for instance. But in an animist culture, by analogy, those rings are as powerful as the full-size statues. Okay, so the process of miniaturization was a way of taking elite magic and making it accessible to a much broader audience. So that's how miniaturization has functioned in esoteric history. It's a way of liberalizing knowledge and power that is normally held very tightly at the top of a society. So
So
they were, sorry,
the philosophy content got miniaturized into 78 cards.
yeah.
In
And
psychology, we talk about agency.
mm,
Would you say that the cards of this deck have agency?
yeah, when you bring a certain intent to them,
Like with active imagination.
yeah, then you activate those connections. Yes.
Okay, and then the power can overwhelm you.
Yeah, that's my advice is not to do it unless you have a very clear purpose.
Okay,
You shouldn't do it for self-aggrandization, for instance.
with this deck at least, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's not something to
Yeah.
play with in that sense.
So back to Christiani, when he commissioned it, do you had any idea, impression, input, energy? Who gave you an idea when and why he commissioned it, and how it got
Yeah.
distorted in the diplomatic course that it ended up in Venice, where he probably
Hmm.
didn't want it to end
Hmm.
up?
Hmm. So Ferrara was in a very strange position. They were adjacent to Venice, and Venice was losing territory and incomes in the east due to the encroachments of the Ottomans. They decided to make up the money by seizing their neighbor's property. And they invaded Ferrara and seized something like one third of its agricultural lands. The result in Ferrara was famine, and the Duke had to borrow heavily on international markets to buy the food to stave off famine. It was that desperate. But being in such close proximity to Venice, you cannot undo that relationship. You still have to deal with them. And that's what the Ferrari set about. They started, and this was where Prisciani was at his highest activity. He had to examine all of the legal documents relating to the relationship between Venice and Ferrara and commence a legal process to, to be paid for the damages, essentially. Okay. So my contention is that one use of the surgical ritual process would be to power Ferrara's access to redress, to justice, in order to stave off the famine that was threatening their population. There was a real compelling reason to engage in high magic.
Was the deck already available before this famine?
I believe that the theurgic process had been made available by Platon when he was in the country
Without the decks, just by
without
the.
the deck,
Okay.
and it had been preserved somehow. I'm not sure how they preserved it.
So the causality is first the theurgy and then the
Yes,
miniaturization into the
yes,
deck.
yeah.
And when the miniaturization into the deck happened, was there already the goal to give the deck to Venice, or was that later?
I think that was later because the person on the other side of the legal process, the Venetian representative, was Marin Sanudo.
Yes, and Zenudo got the deck, and in his possession, it was colored. It
It
wasn't
was
colored
colored
by
and
Ferrara.
decorated with his
Yeah.
initials and
So,
so
so you
on.
are saying
It was a
after
payoff,
after the theological ritual had been successful,
essentially. Yes,
the
they
deck
got
the,
paid.
the deck could be given away
Yeah, they got paid in 1491, and that is the date
when the deck
painted
went to
onto the
Venice.
deck
Yeah, yes.
sealed. So
Why
the
wasn't why wasn't it colored in Ferrara?
I'm not sure that they had a need for a colored version. I mean, essentially, the deck is a series of blinds and deceptions
Oh,
hiding
okay,
a
okay,
ritual process.
okay, okay. Now I understand the process. And now the family of Deste. In one of your videos, you said something very intriguing. This family is not only Italian Ferrara associated,
Yeah,
but they had descendants, sort
yeah.
of marriage descendants. And could you elaborate on the connection to England and Hanover, England, and today?
It gets very complex. Basically, the d'Este of Ferrara were a cadet branch of the House of Este. And the House of Este is one of Europe's very old royal or aristocratic houses. And connected to that is the House of Hanover, and therefore the George the First, Second, Third, who were the kings of England. And I think Mary d'Este married James the Sixth and was a queen of England for a short time. So the family's fortunes are strangely interwoven with a huge chunk of European royal history. It's very
How
bizarre.
about today? Are they the Epsteins of today?
Well, I don't know whether they're the Epsteins of today, but certainly most American presidents have a relationship to the British royalty, which is absolutely extraordinary.
Okay,
And that includes Barack Obama, for God's sakes.
okay. So coming back to your book, and the Sola Busca deck is an uncanny artifact
Mm.
because of what?
It conveys its own power. It is a portal.
Okay.
It's a portal. And if you open that portal, you better take care about what you do with it.
And the rest of the Sola Busca tarot deck can be read in this book because
Yeah.
we want people to buy it and not
Yeah.
listen not listen to this video. But there is a second book. This is 6 years later. The book was
Yeah.
published in 2017.
Yeah.
And the second book, The Two Esoteric Tarots, was published in 2023.
Yes.
And Esoteric Tradition Concealed in Plain Sight. You did a conversation together with your colleague Christophe Ponce, and there was a moderator,
Yes,
Cesar
indeed. Yeah.
from Chile. Could you
Yeah.
elaborate why does this book exist?
Okay. So the gentleman in Chile contacted Christoph and myself independently. And he said, following both of your work, it strikes me that there's enormous synthesis possible between your respective research. And so that sounded intriguing to both of us. So we agreed and set out to develop a set of questions that would allow Christoph and myself to explore some higher level uh, topics in relationship to the Tarot de Marseille origins and the Sola Busca's origins. And it turned out that they both have the same ultimate origin in George Gemistus Platon. In Florence, that took the form of the school that formed around Marsilio Ficino. And what Christophe Ponce has done, he examined the buried frescoes in the Esztergom Palace in Hungary. And they are perfect reproduction of the cardinal virtues in the Tarot de Marseille. But they've been buried for hundreds of years. And they're definitely in the style of Botticelli. I don't say Botticelli went to Hungary, not necessary, but he probably sent one of his senior students with a set of tracings, which could be pressed onto the plaster there and then painted. That means that the Tarot de Marseille originated in the same Platonic circles as the Sola Busca, but in Florence.
Is that a valid falsification of Cour de Gobelin?
So I didn't understand.
Is that a valid falsification?
Yes, absolutely.
In the sense of Popper, that Cour de Gobelin was wrong?
Yes. So we can now date the birth of the esoteric tarot to 1450 to 1490 in Italy, in Florence and Ferrara.
So we throw away all the historic books?
No, sometimes history has a symbolic truth to it.
Okay.
And what Court de Gobelin was picking up, I believe, is a sense of a current, which we can call hermetic, which definitely manifested in late Platonism. But by that time, remember, that Platonism had come through Alexandria, from Athens to Alexandria, which is where it had its greatest force and its greatest effect for some centuries before being dispersed.
When Walter Hanegraaff was doing his webinars, Infinite Fire webinars in Amsterdam, in his university context, he was talking about Platonic Orientalism, and he was talking about Marsilio Ficino equals Zoroaster, and Pico della Mirandola equals Moses and Kabbalah, and Ludovico Lazzarelli being the hermetist of the time. And after Ludovico Lazzarelli, because of the research of Oscar Christella, we know that Agrippa Cornelius von Nettesheim, in his 3 books of Occulta Philosophica, he is a disciple of Ludovico Lazzarelli. Are you concurrent with this approach?
It's not an area of history that I've examined.
Okay, so for the viewers, read the book and look the Walter Hanegraaff up. And now we come to the next book, and that is Mystery, right? No, I have to jump up here and go back to our talk site, which is here. Okay, this is the talk site for today. And now we're coming to this. This is the book After the Game of Saturn.
That's correct.
And that's called Mystery.
Yeah.
Here's the book of Ludovico Lazzarelli by Walter Hanegraaff. And this is the energy book. We talked about that. And now this. Why did this book come into being?
The frescoes of the Villa of the Mysteries have been one of the fascinations that I've had for half a century. And when I started this process, I wrote the Game of Saturn, and immediately the theme of the sequence of initiation into the mysteries of Dionysus became a compelling topic for me to finally get a grip of. And when I examined all the academic literature, I couldn't find any understanding of what a mystery cult was, or how the grammar, the iconographic grammar of this fresco cycle related to the mystery cults. So this was another intriguing puzzle.
And this book is only about the mysteries of Dionysius.
Yeah, essentially it's the only frame by frame analysis of the initiatory cycle into the mysteries of Dionysus.
And what is the initiatory cycle? What is the ritual?
It's essentially a invocation of the god that is
Dionysius.
Dionysius,
Dionysius.
which is facilitated by not only devotional activity and purification, which are the prerequisites, but by an extract of the Amanita muscaria mushroom, muskimol,
So a psychedelic drug.
an entheogen, let's call
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
an
Okay.
accelerator
Yeah. Okay.
of spiritual enlightenment. And what that cycle depicts in a very covert way is the presence of the mushroom and the administration of it.
Okay. There is a modern development after the LSD researcher Stan Grof. LSD was forbidden in the
Yeah.
United States. He had to change, and there were other psychedelic drugs, and then he developed the holotropic breathwork. In your experience with your own energetic field experience, is what Stan Grof is doing with his holotropic breathwork or hyphen with
Yeah.
psychedelic
Yeah. Yeah.
support, what the people are experiencing,
Mm.
how high up in the spiritual world are they getting, in
Okay.
your opinion?
I mean, I was a professional rebirthing breath worker,
Okay.
so I studied holotropic breath work quite intensively at the time.
Yes.
My own experience is that the breath work depends a lot on what a person brings to it, so that the people I was seeing were looking for the resolution of life issues.
Okay.
They were stuck, basically. And that's a different context from the research background of the Esalen Institute.
Yes.
You know, and what Groff was doing, he actually got the breathwork technique and adapted it with loud music and drumming and very fierce breathing. And what this tends to do is dredge up deep content, but in an uncontrolled way.
So it's not a controlled initial ritual like Dionysius.
Yeah, it has no control. For instance, when I do the rebirthing breath work, I always make sure that the client stays in their comfort zone. And we back out by modulating the circular breathing so that the energy doesn't surge over the top.
Okay.
And the reason we do that is the danger of re-traumatization. In other words, you can bring up uh, deep problems very rapidly with rebirthing breath work, but the client is not in a position to integrate them.
Okay.
So they end up being re-traumatized.
So this is different from your Mistai book
Yeah,
and the ritual of Dionysius.
yeah.
How would you say, if you had the opportunity and the money from somebody else to establish a Mistai temple in Turkey, would you do it?
I would have to be a devotee of the God. That's to say, give up everything
Okay.
to commune with the deity on a daily basis. This is the
Oh,
precondition
yeah, okay.
of a mystery style initiation.
Do
Either
you,
you,
do you know of anybody who is doing this?
this is still the tradition in the Higher Yoga Tantra of Vajrayana, the Indo-Tibetan
Okay.
Higher Yoga Tantra still
Okay.
proceeds in this way.
Okay.
So they're people who are full-time devotees.
When got it published, the Mistai?
It was 2019, 2 years
19.
after Game
And
of Saturn.
this is the next book?
Yep.
What about this book? Hagia Sophia, Spiritual Descent in an Age of Tyranny, Sanctum of Kronos. So
Yeah.
Hagia Sophia is, from my understanding, the church which is now a Muslim
Yeah,
church,
it's now a mosque in
a mosque
Istanbul.
in Istanbul, and a lot of tourists. It's no longer in use for the religious purposes. It's a tourist attraction, right?
Yeah, it was a museum before they turned it into a mosque.
Yes. And what is spiritual descent in an age of tyranny. Which
Okay,
tyranny do you think of?
Justinian the First.
Ah, okay. And what is this book about?
So, what I do with this book is pick up where the mysteries of Eleusis ended, with the last legitimate Eumolpide Hierophant Nestorius, his son Plutarch of Athens, and his daughter Asclepiadina, and the transfer of the instrumental, that's to say, the spiritual mechanism of Eleusis from Eleusis to Athens, and the attempt to keep it going in a kind of advanced school of Platonic studies in Athens, which they succeeded actually for almost the entire fifth century. It was
Okay,
active,
okay.
and they trained and initiated and taught clergy to some of the most advanced intellects of the age, who kind of came to Athens precisely for this advanced training. And that includes the great philosopher Proclus, who became head of that school.
Which is my which is my inspirator.
Yeah,
When I talk with people, I always say I'm a Proclus disciple.
yes,
That's it. And if
yes,
you want to talk with me about
okay,
philosophical aspects and you don't follow
yes,
Proclus, we have nothing to talk about.
yes. So,
How about yourself? Are you a Proclus
oh yes,
type?
absolutely. The book is essentially
Is that
a
is that your confession book?
no, it's essentially my admiration of what Proclus achieved.
Well, admiration is one thing. I am a disciple of Proclus. That's something different,
Oh,
I
I
think.
totally follow all the doctrine, yes.
Okay, so we are both on the same side there.
Oh yes.
Which
And
gives me reason to a special question. I
yeah,
talked to Levente Laszlo about his Patreon undertakings. I don't know whether that's a correct translation, but his endeavors in Patreon, and he has followers who give him money every month,
uh,
$3 or $5 for
mm,
his translation work. I was wondering, you don't have a Patreon, right?
I do actually.
Oh, what address
Peter
is
Mark Adams, yeah.
Peter Mark Adams with Patreon? And what
Yeah.
what can people get there?
Well, I put all my spare bits of writing, interviews.
Let's get this straight. Let's get this straight. Okay, how do I find you? I give Patreon, or what is that?
Yeah,
Pa
Patreon, Peter
pa
Mark Adams. It should pop out of the
Patreon,
search.
Peter Mark Adams. This looks like it.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can get into it without fees, and then there is
Yes,
then
yes,
the,
indeed.
and
Yeah,
there is but there will be some special articles which are for money, right?
yeah. But I set this up, but because of the intensity of my work producing the last two books, the volumes one and two of Mithras, I've spent very little time with this for quite some months.
And there
But
was a
yeah, for a
there,
free
there's a
access,
culture conference having been in on the 29th of April this year. Was this year?
yeah, indeed, yeah.
It is about your new book. We talk about it in a minute. So,
Yes,
okay.
I'm talking
O-
about the mysteries of
Okay.
Mithras.
So there is something. So if people want to support your work, they can do it over your Patreon, right?
That would be very gratefully received.
Okay. The next book is your Mithras book, right? Oh no, there's
Yeah.
a there's an
No,
homeopathy
no,
book.
that's not mine. Where's
That's
that?
that's not yours.
No,
Okay.
it's not mine. Cassandra Marks, that is.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. So I have to delete that. Okay. So
please.
now we come to this. Now here is the final talk. This is the end of our talk today. We will talk about the mysteries of Mithras in two books. The first book was published by Theon Felderfing Starnberger See, and people can click on this link. And no, I clicked on, okay, now I got rid of what I can't get rid of, which is our talk site. So let's go back to this talk site to find it again. I'm too old for this technique. Okay.
It's
And it's at the end of the site. So here we are. So here's the book title. Okay, this is the cover of the first
yeah.
book. This is the first book, Ritual and Epiphany in the Mysteries of Mithras. What's the title of the second book, which will be out in the autumn
I'm not
this year?
sure Theon will I need to talk to Theon about that.
Okay.
But
So
essentially,
the links are here. This is the publishing company in
yeah,
Felderfing or am Starnberger See.
yeah,
And here are some information about the work of Peter Mark Adams. And now the first, this is about Mithras. And in the academic discussion, we have a history. In the first half of the 20th century, Frank Coumont was somebody who was researching Mithras and has the transmission Persia, Anatolia, Rome.
yeah.
And then in the second half of the 20th century, the academic approach somewhat got away from Kumo, and you are sort of going back to Kumo. Is that correct?
In fact, Roger Beck had turned back towards Eastern Anatolia.
Okay, and you followed him.
I followed him.
Okay,
The amount of research that's been done, the amount of archaeological research is enormous
okay,
since Coumont was writing.
yes.
So, the pool of information we have is like vastly bigger. Also, the dimension of esoteric Mazdaism is something which I guess, most European esotericists are not terribly familiar with. So there's a disconnect between the Roman cult, which most of us have a grasp of, and the Mazdian roots of it in Eastern Anatolia. So really, the second volume deals with this connection.
Which will be available this
Yeah,
year.
I only finished it last
Yeah,
night.
okay. Coming back to the Mithras cult in Rome.
Yeah.
I had an intensive discussion in preparation for our talk
Oh,
today with Reinhard Stiele in Tübingen, who is rather well versed in the Mithras problems. And he said there's one thing with the approach of Peter Mark Adams,
mm,
the iconographic
yeah.
iconography in Rome. They had the zodiac,
Mm.
and the Anatolic iconographic pictures don't have the
Yeah,
zodiac.
he's right.
How do you explain it that the Mithras cult in Rome is still in the legacy of Anatolia?
Okay, so what is an esoteric tradition? It is a connection to a deity. The deity is Mazdian. This is a Persian god, and we can't get away from that. It's not a Roman god at all. So the current, so to speak, is connected to Mazdian esotericism, which is a very distinctive shamanic form of religiosity. So if you envisage a process from the Kurgan steppes through the Caucasus Mountains into Iran and then into Anatolia, you have a version of Mazdaism, pre-Zoroastrian shamanic religion. This is important. It is polytheistic, animist, and it uses Haoma, a plant spirit at the core of its ritual process. It's another entheogenic plant with direct parallels between the mythos of Dionysus and the mythos of Avesta, and therefore of the Vedic side as well. So I've actually created a table showing the similarities of mythology, which is the basis of the ritual process for these three currents. Anyway, so you have a Persian god, and you have that Persian god meeting the Romans, and a transfer of the cultic apparatus to Rome. Okay?
I
This is
remember
initiatory
I
transmission.
remember a video of yours where you said there was an outer event which was a war between Parthians and Rome,
Yeah,
and the Parthians had won, and
yeah,
the Parthian king wanted to establish his son or his son-in-law, I forgot who it was.
yes,
And to do this, they all went to Rome,
yeah,
and Rome accepted this installation of this son of this Parthian king.
yes,
And during that procedure, during this signing of the
yeah,
contract, Mithras is in the picture because it's a contract.
yeah.
And then the
There was an
ritual,
initiation. Yeah,
the esoteric, the inner temple assembly, the
yeah,
tools of the ritual and the priesthood and the priestess, they were transferred to Roman people. Is that correct?
That's correct. So it was in Nero's court.
Okay.
There was a transfer of the initiatory lineage. And thereafter,
Is that historically documented, or is
yes,
that
in Pliny's natural history,
okay? So basically, what we
because
have
Pliny was
here,
at Nero's court at the time.
and did the Parthians leave high priests in Rome, or did they
No, I
all go
don't think
back?
so. I think what they did is to engage in a ritual process whereby the lineage was embedded. I
Like an
mean,
initiation, like for yourself.
yeah, I mean, to be empowered by a deity is to put you within that lineage.
Wait.
Okay. What you then do with that empowerment, you don't have a Magian background. You cannot do the ritual as the Magians did it,
And
but
that's
you
why the
still
zodiac.
have the empowerment.
And that's why they invented the zodiac in the
So
iconography.
that was the Hellenistic elaboration
Okay.
of the cult apparatus.
Okay.
Okay.
So now back to your book. This book, the first one, Ritual and Epiphany. If the reader reads that book, does he get an epiphany?
What he gets is the ritual process of initiation, how it was done, what was done, and what the outcome was. So it's a
Why should he read it?
well, just because it is an essential, it is the biggest, most important mystery tradition of Europe.
Okay.
It is the foundation of Europe's esoteric tradition. And if that matters to you, then this book is important.
This, then you have to have it in your shelf.
You should do.
Sh 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 did we cover the Mithras books 1 and 2 sufficiently, or do you want to add something?
Well, I just can add that the one I've just completed deals with this question of how this origination took place.
Okay.
Okay, so that will kind of complete the loop, complete the circuit, so to
Well, I
speak.
asked my library to buy it for me that I can lend it because it's not so cheap. So let's see whether my library will buy the book for me, and then I can read the first one, and then I will ask them to buy the second one as soon as it's available. Anything else we missed to talk about your books, your life, your wife, your income? Anything we should add?
No, it's it's very comprehensive talk. Okay, thank
Was
you
it
very
was,
much.
was it okay for you like what we
Yeah,
did today?
sure, sure,
Okay.
sure.
So nothing to add.
I can't think of anything right now, but as soon as we're offline, I'll probably think of 1,000 things I could
Ho-
have.
I have a last question. How do you see the international scene of the tarot community, the astrological community, the Mithras communities, the occult communities? How do you see the people who are not as sophisticated as yourself? How do you
I
see
mean,
these communities?
we're all on the same karmic spiral, I think, it's I
Is
don't
there
try
is there
and
is there sort of an occult degeneration in your opinion?
there's always been a degeneration. It's
Oh,
always been
always
a
be okay.
side phenomena
Okay.
of genuine esotericism. There's always been a tendency to seize power, to
Yes.
manipulate other people. Um, I think a lack of clarity about the hidden world, about the presences that exist in it, and about overconfidence in the persona's ability to handle them are perpetual problems with the esoteric path.
Is that the main reason why the Golden Dawn broke up?
Yeah, essentially,
Yeah, basically.
these
Okay.
vehicles have all the faults of their founders within them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you from Hanover for myself and for the viewers that you took the long time today to do this talk and waiting for our postal parcel in the beginning. So thanks a lot to
Yes, it's been a
Istanbul.
pleasure, Volker,
All
and
the best to you
I
and your
do hope
wife.
your viewers enjoy this chat.
I'm Anybody who is interested in your work will view this, and it's a good talk. It was very, very thorough. Many questions were answered which were not answered in the 27 videos of my playlist. So I'm very glad we did this today. So I will stop the recording. Thank you.
Thank you.